Tanche and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Sav Jonza. Moccasin Joe Coffee Roasters serves up cups of Java in the Mohawk community of Kanesatake. They recently launched a new line focused on sourcing coffee from 100% Indigenous-owned farms. The company has also made the majority of its packaging more environmentally friendly. Maricela Amador has more.
Between 13 to, let's say, 15, 16 minutes.
Julie Ann David is carrying on the family legacy of roasting artisanal coffee.
That's how you do your smell test.
David, along with her brother Mike, have taken over Moccasin Joe Coffee Roasters.
These are off beans, and a lot of times these are unripe.
A company their father, Walter David, started in the community 17 years ago.
I'm taking over roasting. I pretty much it's going on a year soon. I've been learning the ropes from my father and just trying to learn everything about the entire roasting process right to the packaging, and next it'll be learning how to source the coffee.
Now, the siblings are on a mission to not only expand the company, but also to partner up with other Indigenous coffee farmers and producers around the world.
Our first coffee partner for our new Indigenous to Indigenous Coffee Alliance line will be from Guatemala. It's the CCDA. Actually, we're hosting the founder today at our new roastery, so it's pretty exciting.
The Campesino Committee of the Highland, or CCDA, is an indigenous organization in Guatemala that supports indigenous farmers and rural populations by improving their quality of life. During a visit to Moccasin Joe's new roasting facility, Leocadio Huracan, a Capchiquilmaya farmer with the CCDA, said that this new partnership was both significant and strategic. He highlighted the importance of First Peoples coming together.
Una conexión que no solo se trata de comercializar café, sino también de compartir cultura, compartir lo que nosotros somos, lo que nosotros sabemos y nuestra visión hacia la humanidad, nuestra visión cosmogónica para la sociedad, para la búsqueda de justicia social y sobre todo para que se respete la naturaleza, la madre tierra.
The new line was inspired when the siblings realized that there weren't many Indigenous-owned coffee farms in source countries.
This new line is really just to build out, hopefully, a supply chain of more Indigenous ownership. We kind of see the whole supply chain from coffee farmer to importers to producers to roasters and beyond.
There we go. This is actually the Guatemalan CCDA coffee.
Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Kanesatake, Quebec.
Dawson City, Yukon has been the hub of a Labor Day softball tournament for 29 years. Teams from Alaska, the NWT, and Yukon were back after 3 years of pandemic border restrictions. A team of wildfire evacuees from Yellowknife also showed up. Carly Schrogner has the story.
During the summer, ball is life. Like, everybody lives at the field. It's a good atmosphere, so much fun.
That second year in a row most valuable player, Kathleen Nogasak of Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk, for hitting home runs.
I hit a bomb. Only woman to hit a bomb, too. But it was there was another girl in the running, and I'm happy they chose me.
As hockey is for winter, baseball is a staple for the Mackenzie River Beaufort Delta region summer, with tournaments from June to end of August. Going to the September Labor Day weekend Dawson tournament, for many, is the last hurrah before the snow comes. Winning last year as the first team from the NWT, the Berry Pickers brought in a Yellowknife evacuee, originally from the Arctic Ocean coast of Tuktoyaktuk.
Yeah, I play in Yellowknife because I'm a evacuee. I play for Harleys and BFTA in Yellowknife, but I'm a berry picker at heart. That's where I started playing. Thanks to Barry, man. Like this, we are the BARRY pickers because Barry is our captain, our pitcher, and he's done a phenomenal job kind of bringing us all together and making us a team. So yeah, and props to Barry.
Big freaking thank you to Dawn too. Even if you're just starting out, do it.
Yeah.
Like practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Inuvala and Gwich'in team members from Inuvik and Fort McPherson drove the nearly 800 kilometers along the Dempster Highway for the tournament.
There you go! It's my second time. It's good to be back in Dawson and playing a part of the Labor Day weekend tournament. I've always played with my family in Sigachik. Always played together. That's all baseball was about to me. Family, cheering each other on. Juliet, Trish, she sponsored us, and she, straight from the beginning, she told us that we were a family, and that's what pumped us up. You know, it's all about love, sharing love, and giving love, and everybody, even through the Alaskan teams, we played good with them, good sportsmanship, and just pumping each other up.
In the final game Sunday evening, Fairbanks Alaskan team Skeeters won against another Alaskan team back from a 3-year hiatus from the pandemic border restrictions.
I've been coming to this tournament in '99, then I've been playing softball probably since I was like 15 years old. From Fairbanks, I'm from North Carolina, live in Fairbanks, Alaska, retired Army guy, but bringing us together is like a family for one weekend. And then coming to Dawson, it's more of a family because I get to meet so many people. I get to trade with people, I get to talk with people. It's always good to get the sweetness of the cup, but you have awesome teams here. The competition has become like phenomenal here in Dawson. But the Juliets, the berry pickers, I tell you, they have me wanting to be from Tuck, you hear me? So it's pretty awesome. I want to thank Don for putting the tournament on. Thank her for having us.
Dawn Kasoon is originally from Inuvik. Next year will be 30 years since the tournament began in 1994, she says. Carly Schogner, APTN National News, land of the Trondeck Gwich'in, Dawson City.
There's a rich history of hunting and trapping in Canada's largest national park, but despite long-standing cultural practices in wood buffalo, some Indigenous groups have been pushed to the fringes. Our reporter, Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, brings us to Fort Smith, Northwest Territories for that story.
Ken Hudson has been hunting all his life, but it hasn't been easy. For decades, he's been fighting tooth and nail for recognition of past wrongs and inherent rights for Métis in Treaty 8 territory.
Large chunks of our own land, including Wood Buffalo Park, we couldn't hunt. And we can't hunt in Alberta, Saskatchewan, places that other Aboriginal people that were here, we're standing next to them, have those rights.
With Treaty 8, First Nations in the area have been afforded hunting and trapping rights in Canada's largest national park. But Métis who were there at the time of treaty signing in 1899 were not included. In 2016, Hudson was the president of the Fort Smith Métis Council and was part of the NWT Métis Nation, who demanded the federal government provide $120 million in compensation and a formal apology for this mistreatment. But the issues with the park have been tied into the ongoing work around Métis land claim and self-government.
It just drags on. We're after reconciliation for what they did to us in the park as well. So that's at the negotiating table. Now this issue here of the government cheating us out of a treaty or an agreement at treaty time is a separate issue. But they're tied to the table, which they shouldn't be.
President of NWT Métis Nation, Gary Bailey, has been at the negotiating table since 1997.
No formulas for the land transfer, formulas for compensation. So it's pretty well like starting all over again and taking 10 to 20 years because, you know, anything you put forward, you're going to have to prove your case. So which means there's got to be studies and so on done for each thing to figure out what your losses really are.
He also says Canada's insistence in lumping in all Métis issues for redress has been stalling any progress.
Can't be holding us at ransom, you know, saying if you want it this bad, give this and this and this and this, give it up.
Meanwhile, back at Hudson's house, insult to injury.
And this bill now is $5,326.86. We'll be paying that one, that's for sure.
Outstanding bills from the territorial government to use his traditional territory.
For us to get charged for building cabins, for harvesting, and for showing our grandkids.
Both Bailey and Hudson say they've been told by colonial government that the territory has the right to levy taxes on Crown lands, as long as it doesn't affect Indigenous ways of life. A way of life that Métis will continue to practice, while being charged to do so. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Fort Smith.
Thanks for that, Charlotte. We need to step aside for a moment, but stick around. We have more stories from up north coming next. The Yukon will soon be reducing its carbon footprint thanks to a new First Nation clean energy project. As Sarah Connors tells us, it's the first of its kind in the north.
There was celebration in Whitehorse Tuesday for the completion of a new renewable energy project that will help reduce the territory's reliance on fossil fuels. The Heckle Hill Wind Farm is managed by Eagle Hill Energy Partnership, a project of Kwanlin Dun First Nations Development Corporation, Yukon. It's the first entirely Indigenous-owned wind power project in northern Canada.
Our vision for this project was simple: reduce our community's reliance on imported fossil fuels using the power of the wind.
The $30 million project received funding from Canada, Canor, and the Clean Energy for Rural and Remote Communities program. 4 new turbines will replace 2 decommissioned turbines previously owned by Yukon Energy. Their 4-megawatt capacity is expected to produce enough clean energy to power 650 homes over 20 years.
Right now it's 650 homes. Maybe next time we'll double that. So thank you.
Yukon CEO says economic development projects like Heckle Hill are reconciliation and action.
And it also means empowering our people. That's what reconciliation means to me. But everybody has a different version of reconciliation.
At 46 meters tall, the turbines are larger in size than the originals, allowing them to access stronger airflow. Their design also includes black-heated blades, which will help with de-icing in the winter. The turbines will run during the colder months when winds are strongest and will help offset 115 tons of greenhouse gas emissions.
These advanced cold climate wind turbines will continue to drive research and innovation, paving the way for wind energy to play a larger role in Yukon's clean energy future.
The turbines are expected to be operational later this month. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Inuit students in Joe Haven are interviewing elders in their community to save the traditional knowledge of their people while learning about their local history. Trevor Wright reports.
Inuit students in the Nunavut community of Joe Haven are taking part in a project where they interview elders to help preserve their traditional knowledge.
We interview elders and we go back to history and then modern. We learn lots about our traditional ways back then.
The Natalik Heritage Center in Joe Haven has partnered up with Queen's University to support this initiative. The interviews will be available locally for future generations.
And so this is a really valuable way to, not only for them to work directly with elders, but to then create a resource that is available to the community and to younger Inuit to come after them.
The students say the elders of Joe Haven were happy to see such a project take place.
It was a good experience because the elders were happy to see young faces and be a part of the program.
And so we've been really pleased at how the elders have really embraced the process as well, because they really like to see themselves and their stories being documented.
The project is going until 2025. However, they're hoping to find support to help extend the project beyond that.
This is an incredibly strong group. They're really dedicated to one another, and they're really dedicated to the work. In a nutshell, the project can't exist without their participation.
What's important is we listen to our elders and we need to know more of our traditional ways and keep them alive.
Trevor Wright, APTN National News, Joe Haven.
The polar bear population in Nunavut is showing growth despite still being a vulnerable species. That and more after the break. Welcome back. In the near future, climate change is expected to significantly reduce polar bear habitat as soon as 6 years from now. However, polar bears are enjoying a small victory thanks to a continued adaptive co-management policies. Trevor Wright reports.
In Nunavut, polar bears are becoming a more common sight. Still listed as a vulnerable species, adaptive co-management between governments and municipalities in Nunavut have led to a rise in local polar bear populations since the 1990s, according to the World Wildlife Federation. But one longtime resident of Grise Fjord says things aren't as bad as other reports are saying.
That's what they thought from what they read down there, and they believe it, but up here it's different. So they thought polar bears were starving and it's going to affect us.
In Resolute Bay, residents were sharing food harvested from whales by local hunters during the summer, with each other and with the bears, or nano-eat.
There's a whole bunch and they're all healthy looking, all big, their stomachs are almost touching the ground.
Polar bears are usually tolerant when you keep your distance, but don't let that fool you. They're still very dangerous creatures.
It really depends on if they're hungry, if they have cubs. Because if they're hungry, they don't tend to get scared easier, so sometimes you have to kill them because they're aggressive because they're hungry. They can go in the community and start being aggressive.
As a result, residents are required to burn their garbage at the dump so the bears don't eat it. While polar bear populations are on the up, the loss of sea ice habitat due to climate change is expected to make a significant impact, with ice-free summers in the Arctic expected as soon as 2030. Trevor Wright, APTN National News, Resolute Bay.
In October, families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in the Northwest Territories were invited to visit a new monument in honor of their loved ones. Our reporter, Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, takes you to the unveiling ceremony.
It's a step towards commemoration for the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and two-spirited people. A large crowd gathers outside of the Legislative Assembly of the Northwest Territories this day of national action, October 4th, to witness the unveiling of a new monument, honoring those lives lost and the lives that continue to be lost. Erna Pokiak, an Inuvialuit artist, says she personally had loved ones in mind when creating this statue.
That are so young and so beautiful and so talented that are just gone too soon by somebody else's evil. And the justice that people have to seek and wait years and years and years to find that there's actually justice, or if there's going to be justice.
She received feedback from the Native Women's Association and regional governments on the design and location.
The vision was to make sure there was a fire pit for this reason, sitting by the fire with the benches. I think it's very important for families and friends who need a space for grieving.
According to Pokiak, the red parka signifies northern culture, feathers manufactured into an infinity symbol for Métis, the foundation a drum for Dene, and a quidlek for the Inuvialuit and Inuit. It's been 4 years since the National MMIWG inquiry released its 231 calls for justice, and advocates say little has changed.
This is not an Inuit thing, this is not a Dene thing, this is not a First Nations thing, this is not a Métis thing. This is a Canada issue.
On the minds of many here, missing Inuvialuit and Gwich'in man, Frank Rubin, who disappeared in Fort Smith in May.
No word of hard history, nothing.
Pokiak says she hopes monuments like this will remind governments of changes still needed when families report missing loved ones.
with the current situation of the struggles to find people who are still missing, it's even more important to have outside of the building that can help make some policy changes.
Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
The National Day of Truth and Reconciliation hit hard, especially for one Yukon artist. Mary Caesar survived a horrific ordeal as a child at the Lower Post School. APTN's Sarah Connors show us how her art helped carry her through her healing journey.
Went through a lot of hardship, like a lot of violence in that school.
Mary Caesar always knew she'd survive residential school so she could one day tell her story. The Cascadena artist attended Lower Post Residential School in northern British Columbia from ages 4 to 8. Now an elder, her experience there has never been forgotten and is remembered through her paintings.
It was 4 years of just terror and violence and abuse. So I'm still healing from the memories of the abuse I went through there.
While a student at Lower Post, Caesar suffered horrific physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. She can still recall how one nun in particular took special pleasure in terrorizing her. It's a trauma she grapples with through her painting.
She used to punch us in the face, punch us in the head, on her ears.
Caesar says the wounds from residential school devastated her life and she turned to alcohol to cope. After getting sober in 1991, she traveled to Vancouver where she earned a fine arts diploma. It was around that time she knew she had to tell her story.
I believe that it's part of Canada's history and it should never be forgotten. And that experience, it affected my life.
Caesar has also reconnected to her Kaska culture, a subject matter she often depicts in her art. Since becoming a serious artist, her paintings have been showcased across Canada and Europe. She says it's important to share her story with those who are unfamiliar with Canada's past.
I believe in Europe and in the world to know our history here in Canada, what we suffered.
Caesar wants to continue on her healing journey through her art, even if that journey is painful.
It's called 215. This painting is about when they found those 215 unmarked graves.
It's why she's chosen to paint the former Kamloops Indian Residential School.
It's just devastating and it's emotional for me as a survivor.
While healing hasn't been easy, Caesar says art helps with the process.
It's part of my healing. I've been on this healing journey for a long time.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
That's all the time we have for tonight's show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to catch up on anything you may have missed throughout the year, you can do so at aptnnews.ca. Have a great night and take care of one another this holiday season.